or how they plan. But ultimately, Western Mass is my home, and you have a great reputation, and I'm very excited to really return to um, where I'm born and raised, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Jen?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lively.
Hi.
I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your experience working with children and families who don't look like you, speak the language that you do, or have the economic advantages that you might have. How have these experiences shaped your view of public education?
Sure, I'm going to take a couple of notes if that's okay.
It's a long question.
It's a long question. Actually, as I said, I was born and raised in Western Mass, specifically in Springfield. So I've grown up in a community, even with my own children. We really try to expose ourselves to lots of diversity. It's not only race, but it's also culture, and socioeconomic things. So I have to say, I've started my career specifically in an urban setting. So even though Gill-Montague is not urban, some of the same problems affect those people as far as the socioeconomic and social emotional needs. Right now it's a very difficult time for parents and families right now that we're all closed. So that makes a big difference. So one of the things I'm really interested in making sure that students are getting the equity to the resources that are available. Unfortunately, many districts, especially in the western part of the state, may not have the internet access and the to get the educational services that a lot of them are getting right now. So I think that my career has really been an advocate for students like that. As somebody in my own life, I did not grow up in a very well-to-do family. I grew up in a household that really was collecting from the government when I was younger, and for a vast majority of my life. My parents, were very young when they had us, so I'm really familiar with it, and I know that it's not removed from me. So I'm really an advocate, honestly, for people like that, and I continue to always make sure that everybody's being taken care of. I have a great relationship with our food service director right now. We are providing services for, even though I only have like 45 families actually in Maynard, that was something that was really passionate for me, whether 45 or not. I want to make sure every student is getting food and clothing and the resources. I mean, we are constantly in contact with those families. So that is something I'm trying to be aware of. And as far as ELs and students who don't speak the language and are having difficulties, I think a lot of them are insecure right now of what's happening with their families as far as what's going to happen for people are not here legally and such. So my job is to protect those people and make sure that students are getting the needs that they need. Make sure everything is put in languages that the parents understand, really making the school welcoming for people. We want to make sure that is a safe haven for everybody. And that's really how I feel about this. But we also have to make sure that we are reaching every student, and we can't let everybody fall through the cracks. So I think that really I'm here for the students. Every student to me matters. I think they can't fall through the cracks, and we have to make sure that we identify them and make sure that we stay engaged with those families, because we want to make sure that they get through and have a understanding of what they can do. We need to make sure that they're able to get education and not make it education be defined by what your socioeconomic status is. So we have to do a good job of closing that gap for students. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I might take some notes as we go on, if that's okay.
Bill.
Oh, where's Bill?
Yes. How are you, Mary Jane?
Oh, there you are. Hi, Bill. Good.
I didn't leave yet. What specifically are the 21st century skills that American educators have been talking about for the past 20 years? And how do schools help students acquire those skills?
Well, to be honest with you, the students that are born today are going to have completely different skills that students are having now. The children that are born today are going to be doing jobs that we don't even know exist. So I think that's something we have to be aware of. So the education we provide to the students have to make them have the ability to adapt and adjust to what's happening. So the education we have to provide may not be specifically targeted to a specific career, because not everybody knows what they want to do their whole life. But we have to make sure that the students are able to access resources and have the ability to think on their own and really collaborate with others. So those are the skills if you're an employer, you're looking for, employability skills, teamwork skills. Those types of things are really important. Obviously, content and knowledge is critical, but I think we have to show a lot of the personalization skills and make sure that students are resilient, because again, jobs, especially even today, new jobs are going to come out of the environment that we're facing right now. So we really have to really find resources to help our students navigate what's coming. So when they're talking 21st century skills, yeah, they may be specific skills geared to science and engineering and absolutely positively, but we also have to make sure that they were gearing skills to what they're interested in doing as well. Not everybody wants to be a scientist or an engineer, so we have to, make sure that we're understanding that if they want to be a carpenter, they're able to measure. If they want to be an auto mechanic, make sure that they have the ability to read text or the manuals to support those things. Make sure they have computer skills, that they're able to do diagnostics. Really, the skills that we're talking about, really skills that are transferable to the workplace. Oftentimes, we find, especially with college kids, sometimes they're overeducated and underemployed. So what ends up happening is these students have these jobs, they're philosophy majors and things like that. It is very difficult for them to get a specific job because they, having specific skills in, there's not a lot of philosophy job majors, but what majors can we have students do that they can be transferable? They could also be, reading specialists. They could be, professors. We could have jobs in those specific careers, but they have to make sure that they can use more than one area. So I think really 21st century skills are skills that are transferable, that the students can use whatever path that they choose, and just make sure that we offer a variety of things to also engage your interest. Let them know what's out there. If you're interested in doing this, we're going to try to help you by the classes we offer, support you in that area. If you want to be a medical tech, so let's give you a little more science and to some more of those things. If you if you want to be somebody who works in marketing, perhaps we can get them into journalism and do some social networking things. So really, our job is to make sure that we do inventories for students, what they want to do, make educational personalized for them, but also make sure that skills are transferable. So I think that's what they're talking about, 21st century skills. And to be honest with you, we don't know what those skills are going to look like in the next 20 years. They're going to be completely different today as they are going to be in the future. That's my answer, Bill.
Thank you.
This is so different, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Wow. Yeah. We're all learning. It's a new skill we didn't know we'd need.
That's it. It's a transferable skill. Look at that.
Or not. Okay.
Or not.
Cassie?
Hi, Mary Jane. I'm Cassie Domkiller. I'm a Montague representative, a parent in the district, and also a teacher in a neighboring district.
Mhm.
Can you please describe your experience with curriculum development, curriculum coaches or coaching, and implementing new curriculum in a district?
So you get a little cut out a little bit. So you talked about curriculum development, coaching. Curriculum development.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just got that error message on me. So curriculum development, your experience with curriculum coaching or working with curriculum coaches, and then implementing a new curriculum in the district.
Okay, so as a curriculum director, to be honest with you, that's one of my favorite things to do. One of the very first things that you need to do is really assess your curriculum. You really need to do curriculum reviews, because just putting a curriculum out there is really not always the right thing to do. Teachers have experience, they have the knowledge, they have the wherewithal, and we have to rely on teachers to understand what they're doing. So first and foremost, doing a curriculum review is critical. And when you do the curriculum review, it's important. Are we looking at the content? Yes. Are we looking at instruction? Yes. Are we looking at materials? Yes. So curriculum review really takes a lot of things. So we have to really take a look at that, and curriculum reviews take some time. So those are some things that we'd have to do for the very first thing. And then when you analyze this curriculum, we'll break it down further into, what it means, literacy, skills, what specifically do we need to work on? So that's also something that has to happen. And then once that happens, one of the things I like to do is really pilot some programs to see how they compare. So that's also the cheapest way to do things as well. So sometimes you can ask people to provide you with some resources. And with that, always, always, always ask for a coaching or people that can provide professional development to your teachers in that vein. So really, that's something that's really important when you're looking at curriculum. But again, it takes a couple of years to do this, and you have to develop it. And as far as that, one of the things I like to do is, as a principal, my job has always been to coach teachers. So when I walk into the classrooms, I always provide feedback to my teachers. And it's not always for evaluation. Oftentimes, where I am right now, we have curriculum instruction principals, and we sit down and we meet twice a month with the curriculum instruction principals. And I say, how are you working with the teachers? What feedback are you giving? What are we focused on right now? So we do that with individual meetings within our specific principalships. And I've also done it as a principal in common planning. So those are other ways that we coach specific classes. So we, again, look at data, look at curriculum, see where our deficiencies are, whether it's, like, as I said, instruction, materials, is it actual curriculum? So those are some things we look at as well. But we always have to assess what we're doing to make sure that it may not always just be buying canned curriculum either. So that's not something I always advocate as well. And so when you do decide that you want to move forward with the curriculum, it's really important that you gather all the stakeholders involved. It can't just be a one person making a decision. These people that are involved with this curriculum work, usually it's your lead teachers and your teachers who are actually involved with that particular curriculum. Would be English, math, science, whatever it may be. So really make sure that everybody's involved in the process moving forward with the curriculum and the implementation. And again, it's always nice to try something for a little bit before you jump wholeheartedly in. One of the great things they have right now is it's gonna elude me right now. Ed Reviews. There's a new way to look at curriculum by the state. Why it's eluding me, but it'll pop in my head. But there's a new program right now that helps you look at curriculum, that's to make sure that it's well-rounded, that it touches the social emotional needs of the students and the academic needs as well as instruction. So you really need to look at lots of things when you are looking at curriculum. So as far as, development really is taking a look what the resources you have, find the strong teachers, really use each other. Teachers need to work with each other, look at each other in the classrooms, offer feedback to each other. A lot of professional learning communities, we've talked about those as well when I'm as a principal. I didn't talk about that when I was discussing this, but using professional learning communities is really important when developing curriculum. But always, it's always a collaborative effort. When you're developing curriculum, you really need, and looking at curriculum, you really need to talk to everybody and make sure that everybody's involved in the process. So it's quite a bit of a process, but I think ultimately looking at the data to make sure that you have the right information is really important moving forward, and in collaborating with everybody. No, I rambled on, but that's what we got.
Thank you. Haley?
Hi, I'm Haley Anderson. I'm a school committee member and parent in the district. I'm hoping you can share with us the evolution of your understanding of the importance of social emotional skills and affective learning, how and why they're important. This is a three-parter. How have you supported this type of learning amongst your students and faculty, and what measures would you take to support social emotional learning in Gill-Montague?
Okay, so let me just make sure I have this right. The evolution, and support and the measures, and then the social aspects. Those are the questions.
Yeah. So how have you implemented it in your setting, and then what would you plan for Gill-Montague? Okay,
couple of things. We've actually I've been in 2 different districts where we've started the implementation process. As an educator and as a mom, one of my most important mantras has always been, even before social emotional learning has really brought to the forefront, is I think really addressing the whole child is critical. As we know, children who have needs, whether it be hunger or food insecurities or mental illness or parents who have other issues, kids cannot just come to school and drop everything and then just expect to learn. So as an educator, my whole life has been, listen, if a kid needs 10 or 15 minutes before I start the lesson and whatever I need to do, I'm going to do that. So that is just my own personal philosophy as an educator. I know that sometimes that's the only place they have is school. So we have to do a better job of supporting that. And I'm so glad that this has really been pushed forward to the forefront in education across the United States, especially in Massachusetts. So it's very exciting because, as any of you know, as parents or whatever, if you're or and I actually use this particular what's the word I'm looking for, example when I did my last interview, and I'm going to use it again because honestly, this is the really as a parent, this has been helpful. I had a child of my own. Had a child of my own who I realized that, we had to do a better job as parents. Him and I would butt heads quite a bit for a long, long time. And I would always think, you know what, at one point in my life, I said, oh my gosh, it's not how he is thinking. It's, we need to do a better job because we don't think the same way. He has a very analytical mind. And when I would ask him, I think I used this before, he's coming home from a sporting event. Where are you? I'm on the bus. And I'd roll my eyes. I know you're on the bus. I really want to know, what time, where can I pick you up? And, he got home, he was very frustrated because, Mom, I'm not sure what you asked me. And he was very upset by this. So I would say, it's not him that had the problem, it's me. So I really took that as an educator, like, gosh, everybody doesn't think the same. And you think we would all know that, but we've been talking about differentiation and such moving on. So I think that was really when, to me, about 7 or 8 years ago, I said, oh my gosh, we have to address all of these children's needs. So let me answer the rest of the question. As an administrator, one of the things that we've tried to do in my last 2 districts is really try to get professional development for our administrators. We really worked with Zaretta Hammond, and this year we're working with Department of Education with the Mass Tiered Systems of Support. So we've taken a look at bringing all of our educators, our administrative staff, and really letting them understand what it is like to be, and understand what it is to be addressing the students' social emotional needs. So that's what we're looking at right now as administrators. And that now we're slowly rolling it out to the staff and really trying to provide professional development to the staff at this point to really let them understand and embrace it. We're providing professional development through online. Right now, we're continuing to do that online. And in Maynard. In Athol, we would do it on a monthly basis. We would have our guidance counselor to our staff in that particular area. And then what we would do is we would go into the classrooms, and what the assistant principals would say, today is my day that I'm going in to talk to you about how are you addressing the social emotional needs with your students. And then we would start to track that and bring that back to the staff meetings, saying, last month I noticed people trying this particular resource that we put out. We did a lot of modeling for them at the faculty meetings, and then we expected the teachers to try some of these things moving on. So that's how we did it in Athol. This year, we're really just to the point that we've talked to the principals for 2 years. Our PD this year is based on cultural proficiency and social emotional learning. And right now we're trying to create a more cohesive plan next year so that the teachers can be using those practices more in the classroom. The last question was, I'm not sure, it's how do we support those measures? We did do a lot of tracking with that. A lot of that worked with discipline with the principals and the assistant principals. So say, for example, if a student was having a bad day or student really was not able to communicate well with their instructors, we didn't allow them just to send the students out to the assistant principals anymore. We would say, we had a list of things. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? What did you do to support that child before you threw him out of the class or threw her out of the class? So we really had a lot of series, and we tried to track that. And when I was in Athol, the teachers at first were very resistant to it, but they realized at the end, gee, it's really working a lot better, because why is Mrs. Smith having a great experience with Fred when, Mr. Jones is not? So we taught a lot of talking about that, and it really worked out well. So we did some tracking with that as well. And we held the teachers accountable, to be honest with you. We're not going to continue to just let you send your students out of the classroom without you taking any responsibility for their learning. So that's what we did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen?
Hi. So how would you ensure that the district provides support and enrichment to English learners who fail to meet or exceed the learning standards?
That's something I'm working on right now. I have a great a resource right now that we've assigned a specific person for that job, and I know that you have that new um, coordinator you have. So one of the things that we like to do is really try to work with those particular families. We try to engage the families more in getting them the supports they need as a family. And we really try to offer supports to those students in the way of, you know, extra help, really taking a look at what the teachers are doing in the class. Even though a lot of them are not special ed, a lot of our all teachers should have taken sheltered immersion training. I know right now we have a couple of students who thankfully now don't have to do anything about not passing the MCAS because they got a free ride this year. But to make sure that we talk to the teachers, you know, what are they doing? You know, we want to make sure they're held to this accountable for the content, but you know, they have to really look at their teaching. You know, what are you doing to support these students? Is it differentiated instruction, you know, grouping them, you know, just leaving them to fail on their own? What are you doing to support the students? So we really have in May our EL, and we've done a really good job trying to get them the supports they need, and that's what we're doing right now. Not instruction. What they're doing is important because oftentimes we don't want them to get discouraged, and we don't want the families to get discouraged saying, gee, I can't do this, I can't do this. So we really try to keep the parents involved with that situation, because keeping the parents and really encourages students to continue to try, because there's nothing worse than saying that a parent who say, my child can't do it, I'm just going to let him, I'm going to give up. We don't let them give up. We really work really hard with them, and we work with the teachers to make sure the students are getting the supports they need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cassie?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Good. So can you briefly describe your experience with special education laws, compliance, and supporting special education programs throughout your district?
Sure. I don't really, it has to be done. I'm a huge advocate of students. I think that I'm not an expert in special ed law. I do rely on my special ed director to really help us with that. But one of the things we do demand is we want to make sure that our special ed students are getting their needs. And I'm very good about checking the principals and make sure that they're participating in the IEP meetings. I want to make sure our timelines are being followed. I certainly don't want parents going to the Department of Education and in the resolutions to do something that we should have been done in our district. So I really try to meet bi-weekly with my special ed director. We talk about, what are some things we need to do to make sure that we continue to support our students. In Maynard right now, we have a lot of students who are out of district, and we are trying to do a better job of why are they leaving district? Are we not providing the services that they need? So we're doing right now an inventory because I think the students that are out of district, really we can service here, but I think in the past that they were not really happy with the services we were providing. So we're doing a better job of trying to provide services, bringing more special ed teachers into our district, really trying to do more inclusion with those students and make sure that the students are being serviced on the grid. We're talking about transition meetings. We've done a lot of work with them right now, trying to, there's not been a lot of communication around transition meetings with some of the, with the parents. So that's something I'm working with them now with CPAC. We have a very active CPAC, and they're really good about keeping us up to date what they're looking for. One of the things we're doing now is really trying to reach the out of district parents and bring them back so the students can participate in the activities we have after school. A lot of them are joining our clubs and things like that. So that's some of the experience I have, really just trying to make sure that they're inclusive. So that's what we're trying to do with the special ed students. But as far as educational law, I make sure that, we're in the middle of a review now, and we're looking at our documentation. I am working with the special ed director to make sure that we have, our timelines met, make sure the students' needs are being met, and really doing our best to try to pair up the students so that they are in the least restrictive environment as they can. I've worked with some incredible special ed administrators in my time, and I can honestly say that special ed students have the ability to do everything. Our expectations for special ed students are no different, especially when I was in a career technical school. We had special ed students who really people didn't think they had the ability to do some of these jobs, and they did it just fine. So really, they can do everything. We just have to make sure that we give them the accommodations and the support to make sure that they can be successful. So I'm a huge advocate for students with special needs, and I will, as long as they're getting the least restrictive environment and we're giving them what they need, I say let them sail, be free, and be successful.
Thank you, Heather.
Hi, Mary Jane. I'm Heather.
Oh,
Nice
I
to meet
keep looking at because you guys are in squares, so I feel like I'm playing Hollywood Squares.
We pop up eventually.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to
How
meet
do
you.
Thank you. How do you find the right balance between improvement and innovation, especially with limited resources?
I like that question, to be honest with you, because I don't think innovation and improvement necessarily have to be the same thing. I think if we want teachers to be creative and innovative, we have to make sure that we respect what they're doing and support them and listen to what they have to say. So I think teachers do want to do what's right for the students. So I think having the communication with them and really trying to understand why we need to do what we need to do. One of the things I'm fearful about when I talk to teachers is I don't want to use the word change, because teachers, that's a horrible word. People don't, because when you say change, you automatically think that that you're doing something wrong. So one of the things, excuse me, I'm going to fix my chair here if you don't mind. One of the things I like to talk about with staff is enhancing what you're doing. So I think if we talk about enhancing what they're doing, that's a better way of being innovative, because we're not saying that you're doing anything wrong, but let's try to enhance what they're doing, try to be a little more creative in how we do it. So I think really the way you have to roll that out is strategizing how you're going to do something. Really, sometimes it's having one or two people volunteering to try something and then really offering that to other people and say, hey, come look, this is how it's working. Really being part of that. I know that the high school has been designated an innovative school. So what exactly does that mean? We have to make that determination. Yes, we want to continue moving on with science and mathematics, but we want to make sure that we're providing, again, the skills for the 21st century to make them being innovative. And to me, I don't think it takes a lot of money to be innovative. We have we have the resources there. You have the human capacity to build that. You just have to bring it out in people and make people feel supported and be willing to let them take risks, because you certainly can't say, listen, if you want to do something, I'm going to give you a bad evaluation. You have to let them fly. I mean, honestly, I am one to listen. If you think it's going to work, we'll give it a shot. But you have to continue to have parameters. You can't just try it and be a one and done. You also have to make sure that you're being held accountable when you do these innovative things, because it takes 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5 times to do something before it comes out right. So I think innovation's great, but you have to make sure that somebody's going to stick with it. And you just can't say, been there, done that. But really build the capacity of your staff to be innovative and bring people in who are experts in that area. Find students who are interested in doing it. Really need to, it's not a one size fits all. So I think you have to be targeting and specific with what you're looking for with innovation. So, I think really using the capacity of the people you have in the district and who you have around you to be innovation. It can't be same old, because people aren't going to get any better unless you try new things. So you really have to be supportive and let people try new things. They have to make sure that they feel respected and supportive. And it's important for teachers to feel like they have social emotional wherewithal to do that. You can't have your culture in the buildings have to be such that the students are the staff are willing to take chances. And if the staff is not willing to take a chance, then you need to step back, take a look at your culture. What do we need to do to improve the culture so that they feel safe and secure, that they want to make these changes, or enhance what they're doing to create an environment that makes people excited to learn. So I think anything that makes people excited to learn, to me, is innovation. I don't think it has to be this grand scheme of we're going to throw out everything we're doing. It can be a little bit at a time. So I don't think it takes a whole heck of a lot to be resourceful. You guys are in a beautiful area, so using what you have out there for the resources, people, the colleges, everything is out there. So I think people are willing to help because we need to, and we have to just tap into what we have out there. But it also has to fit in your strategic plan. You just can't pick something out of nowhere. So when you are part of being innovative, you have to make sure that, you're talking about that it fits into your what needs to happen. And we don't want to go completely off the rails with something that has nothing to do with the philosophy or the vision of the school. So you have to make sure that we're staying involved with that as well.
Thank you. This is Jane again.
Okay.
What has been your role in budget planning and development?
Can say I've done everything in budget planning and development. Then I spend it really well. That's really good. I can do that. I've been involved really from the beginning to the end. I've worked with as an assistant superintendent and now as a superintendent, and as a principal. I mean, really, I've run the gamut. So one of the very first things with budget planning is let's take a look at, what money do we have? So oftentimes I work with the towns, this is what our budget was last year. What do you see the revenue coming in? What do you need from me as a school district? What are you looking from me? So I really try to take that, looking at it. I mean, obviously I'm not going to ask people for 8 or 10%. So if they say, Mary Jane, we can maybe give you 2%, what can you do with that? Or 1%, what can you do with that? So then I would go back and I would, have all of my department heads meet with the principals and say, this is early October, let's talk about what we need, what our resources are. We build a capital plan, and then we build a regular plan. So we would have two specific budgets, a capital budget and a regular budget. So really that's two separate things. So we would start that in early October, and say around November, we'd start, compiling that information. And then we go through it as an admin team and departments and say, really, you need to justify what you need, why you need it, and really take a look at it and hone in on it. And then continue to do that for a little bit of time. And then you meet with the finance director and say, this is what we're looking at. How does it look? And you do a lot of negotiation in between there as well. And then you get around, December, start creating the budget based on what we have, looking at the needs of the students, looking at the staffing needs, looking at insurance, facilities, all that things. Those things are really important. What are we going to have? So in building a budget, it's not just about spending. It's really trying to create some revenue sources as well. So during that time when I've been, one of the things, been a superintendent, assistant superintendent, how else can we generate some revenue? What can we do? Because it all can't be, on the tax base. So one of the things we've looked at is really trying to create ways. For example, solar energy is something we're looking at the high school right now where we are. Trying to put some solar panels on the roof because this high school's already been retrofitted for that, and put in a parking lot area for solar power. So looking at a company right now, they've offered to rent our land. So so instead of us paying them for electricity, they are giving us like $60,000 or $70,000 a year for a tax break on electricity using the solar. So that's one of the things we're looking at right now. So it's really about also creating ways to increase some revenue. And it's not necessarily about grant either, because sometimes those are not always long lasting. So really I try to take a look at creating revenue, creating a new revenue stream, as well as, looking at what we have for resources. So those are the two things. So around, January, then we start working with the towns, and then start having the school committee vote on your budget, and then, having your town budgets, and that's how we create budgets. That's my experience.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tommy?
Hi, Mary Jane. Thomasina Hall. I am school committee member, but also a former employee of the district. Can you speak to your experience with collective bargaining and communicating with unions, and just briefly talk about the negotiation process, and what do you feel the role is of principals, the superintendent, and the school committee?
Sure, sure. I have been on probably all sides of the table as a teacher, as a school committee member. I was on the school committee in my town when my children were younger, so I was actually on the negotiating committee with them. And I have been as an assistant superintendent and a superintendent. So I've been across the table, and I think really one of the best skills that I've acquired through my whole career was when I was in Springfield. I was the peer mediation coordinator for the district, and those skills that I learned as far as mediation has really helped me, especially with contract negotiations and collective bargaining. And one of my I think one of the most things I'm proud of in all the districts I've been in is that I really have a great relationship with our union representatives. Right now, I'm working really well with our union representatives as far as negotiating, what the teachers' expectations are during this closure, and we're working together as a group. So I think having a good relationship is really critical. And I meet weekly with him, and I have in all of mine. We have a Monday morning coffee. I'll do the coffee, they bring the donuts type thing. So we've always done that. So as far as that having those relationships is really important. As far as negotiation, I think really setting up, working together is important, because we want to make sure ultimately that our goal is to make sure the students are getting what they need, and the students can't get what they need unless the staff is given what they need as well. So really that's a lot of give and take, and I think it's a negotiation. But I think if you can go with clear expectations that this is what I'd like to move forward with, how can we justify these things that you want, and how does it relate back to the students? So I think really having those clear expectations, because we're there for the kids. I mean, I certainly, as administrator, I think that I've always been fair and honest and really upfront. I am very transparent. And anybody who knows me will tell you that. So really sitting together and really making a list of what they want, making a list what I want, and then there's a lot of negotiation in between there. So I do think on all sides of the table, ultimately, if we can prove, how we can do that, and we also want them to be responsible. I mean, obviously, you're not going to come and ask for 10%, because that is just not a reasonable expectation. So oftentimes we have, conversations before we get started. Hey, we're getting ready to do some negotiations. We have about 18 months left. Let's start working together with that, and really starting earlier than later, and really hashing it out. When I was at Quabog, one of the things that they were ready to go to arbitration before I got there. So then I was on. Then I said, well, not that I'm wonderful, but let me take a crack at working with the teachers union, because I've already had a relationship with many teachers in that particular area. So we sat down, and within the matter of 2 weeks, we'd actually kind of resolved it at that point. So that was kind of exciting. I just think people want to be heard, and it's important, because it's their job and they want to do it the best that they can, but also they have families, and we don't have unlimited resources. So really trying to hone in on really what you need and how we can give it to them, because we want our staff members to be happy. We want to retain them. So we have to make sure that we stay competitive as well, but we can't, give away the farm either. So I think it's just a lot of give and take, a lot of negotiation, and a lot of respect. You have to be respectful. That is critical with anything that you do. I mean, with every staff member, from the cafeteria workers to the facilities director, everybody is doing an important job, and what they do is important. Right now, we're negotiating with my administrative assistant, standing to do a job, and we want to do the best job we can with the resources we have is really what has to happen. So that's my experience. And like I said, I've been on all sides of the table. Back to Jane.
Heather?
I think I got this now. I'm back to Jane.
Okay. Heather?
Yeah, hi. So what are your plans for coaching and or mentoring administrators?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. I think as a superintendent, that's the best part. My job is not just to be the business manager helper with budget. My job is to be the instructional leader for the district. And in order for me to do that, I have to make sure that I am coaching my administrators to be the best administrators that they can be. I have right now, when I meet with my administrators, we have bi-monthly meetings. I meet with my principals twice a month, and I meet with my assistant principals twice a month. My assistant principals are really focusing on social emotional learning and providing feedback in that realm with the administrators. So during those meetings, we put in a lot of we read a lot of articles. We talk a lot about, how are we going to use this, or how can you bring this into your classrooms, and bring that to the teachers. Now, with the other principals, it's really about providing feedback. So I go into the buildings with my principals once a week, at least with every school. Sometimes it's twice a week. And I say, let's sit down. We sit down for about 10 minutes before we get started. Today, let's talk about you. What are some things you're seeing that you want to focus on this year? Usually we'll take a look at instruction, and what the students are doing. We kind of identify what we want to work on with our administrators. So when I go to my walkthroughs with my administrators, like, for example, right before we started, I went with my middle school principal, and I said, what would you like to look at when we walk into the classroom? We'd already established earlier in the year, what specific things are we looking for? We looked at instructional practices, data-driven instruction. It was, what the students are doing, certain things. So we picked one of the targets that we chose, and we were talking really about what are the students doing, and we talked about engagement. So that's what we focused on when we went into the classrooms. Now, we went to 5 particular classrooms, and then we debriefed after each one of them a little bit. And then we sat down at the end and we talked about, what feedback would you give that teacher? I'm going to take a step back, actually. One of the first things I asked was, what does engagement look like to you? Because I had found out early on that engagement is not just the students answering questions. What does engagement look like? So we really had to identify that early on in the year. What does engagement look like? What do we want to see? So again, we revisited that when I coached with the principal. So we went back after my walkthroughs and we talked about that. So what feedback are you going to give to that person? How are you going to provide that feedback? How are you going to hold that person accountable for this feedback in the future? So, we went into, I'll say, a science teacher. She was actually incredible, very, very good. And he said, okay, but I did notice that she needed a little bit of work on that. I said, so how are you going to approach this in a way that is non-threatening and just to be a coachable way? This is not to be used on her evaluation. Really it's a coaching mantra. So he said, I would go in, well, I'll meet with her, we'll talk about this, and then I'll say, I'm going to come back, say, in a week and a half, and, can you give this a try and see if I can see this a little bit. So that's what I do with my principals. I meet with each school at least once a week, so I'm out with every principal once a month. At least to do that. And typically we focus on staff members who the principals are looking for support on. Right now, that's what we're looking on. You can't focus on everybody, but specific areas. I'd like to get some help for this particular teacher. So that's how I coach right now. I work with MASC, who's done a really good job helping me be a better coach to my principal. So I'm really really happy working with them, to be honest with you. They've been very helpful.
And helping us provide feedback to our principals. So I have a mentor as well as a superintendent, so I get some support as well. So that's a good thing.
Sound
I hear you. Oh, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Timmy is another one of our members who wasn't able to join us tonight, so I will ask her question.
Okay.
How do you envision reaching out to and collaborating with town officials in your role, namely the select boards, the finance committees, and the town administrators?
Sure. That's a great question. One of the things we've done in Maynard, which I think has been very successful, is we have about 3 times a year, we have something called a tri-board meeting. So I meet with the finance committee, the board of selectmen, and the town administrators. Who's on the tri-board? Finance committee, school committee, and the board of selectmen. And we meet 3 times a year to really talk about, what direction do the towns want to go into? What do you need for the town? What do we can do to support each other? So it's been a lot of communication. And that's something we started this year. And it's really worked out really well, because I think all the boards need to get together. But individually, I do meet with the finance director and the town administrator at least once a week. Once a month, I meet with the town administrator. I am on his board for his meeting, so I attend those meetings once a month. I also meet with the town accountant. I just had a conversation with him before I got on the phone, so I talk to him quite frequently. And then as far as FinCom, we're working really well with them. I meet with them pretty regularly, especially in the beginning when again, this year they said, Mary Jane, can you come in at, say, you're going to probably balk when I tell you this. Mary Jane, can you come in at your budget at 4.3%? Now, I know that seems unreasonable because we're from Western Mass. We never put more to. So I was like, 4.3? I said, are you kidding me? Of course I can come in at 4.3. That doesn't even seem like it's anything. Well, apparently when I went back and said that to my business manager, she's like, what? Usually it's like 6. I said, are you kidding me? I said, no, it was not a problem. We can come in at 4.3. And we did. We came in at 4.4. Okay, we did pretty well. So I think really having those conversations early on is really critical, and continuing to have those conversations. I mean, I meet with the town accountant pretty frequently. He's on my cell phone. We're always together. We'll say, hey, Mike, I need some help with this. Where can I find this, or what can you help me with? I'm new to the district, but I can say that honestly, I've really got a great relationship with their Board of Selectmen and the FinCom right now. They're incredible people. And just continue to have conversations with them. I attend Board of Selectmen meetings pretty regularly. They're always asking me questions during their meetings, so I'm pretty much there. So I do attend all of those meetings. FinCom, not quite as frequently, but I do attend those, especially early on. And then again, I'll be attending, we're trying to figure out how to do the April budget meeting right now with the public meeting. We're trying to figure that out. So that's something we're working on right now with FinCom. And then, the town meetings, we have those as well. So I in communication with them at least a couple times a month, if not more, depending on who it is and what it's for. Especially right now during a lot of this COVID information, the Board of Selectmen and I and the town administrator are on the same page with everything. I mean, we had a person diagnosed in our school, so we got together and we crafted a statement with the town and the schools. Really, it's a very small town, so we really tend to do everything in unison. When we put announcements out, just because we want to make sure. Oftentimes I'll put something out and then they'll put it on their website after that. So it's a good relationship. And as I said, the town is very small. So, I can walk to the town hall from my office. So, and I do. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, can you briefly tell us about an educational success or accomplishment that you led, or to which you had a significant contribution? And then secondly, conversely, can you briefly tell us about an effort or a project that you led or assisted that didn't work out so well? And what did you learn from the last experience?
Well, I'm going to start with that one first, because you should always start with the bad news first, right? So I'm going to go with that.
Sure.
I'm going to talk about UDL. In my first role as an assistant superintendent, one of the things I was very adamant about is making sure in a career tech education, the shops are very good about having a lot of hands-on work and having an ends to the means. You're building the students come in. By the time I'm done with this project, I'm going to have a shed built, or I'm going to have a carburetor done, or I'm going to be able to have a web page. So there's always an end product there. That's not always the case in an actual classroom with the academic standpoint. So I said, gee, I think we need to do more planning like that with my staff. They were a great staff, and I was very excited to really, let's try to get us all in this UDL, with the end in mind. So, I talked to, not everybody. I talked to the union representation, and I talked to a couple of lead teachers, but I didn't really include everybody in the conversation. And I probably didn't need to include the career technical educators in this actual conversation. So that was a huge flop in the fact that I really didn't strategize a better way to provide that PD to my staff, even though it was an important effort. I didn't get enough buy-in with all constituents, so that really became a huge disappointment to me. I mean, I did revisit it at a later time. So that becomes my new, success. So I think when I was at Pathfinder, by the time I'd left, I can say that our staff was really participating in a lot of UDL. It took me, after that first initial failure, we went back and I did a lot of negotiating with the staff members, and we talked about it. I gave them a lot of articles to read, and then we spent the rest of the year really trying to discover why we needed to do UDL and universal design lessons. So we worked with them. And so when I was able to bring the next, I worked with groups of people instead of working with the whole staff. I started bringing in, let's start with the English department. Let's start with the math department. Then let's bring the special ed people in. So by the time the end of the third year, I felt that it was successful and the teachers did a better job with that. But I think just throwing everybody in the pot with this big one PD day was not a good idea because, first of all, it had gotten there and there wasn't PD planned. So I said, well, we're going to do this and everybody's going to participate. And, they were very gracious, but it certainly was not, it didn't work out like it should have been. I don't think that they were as receptive to the person delivering the message about UDL as they should have been. And after that, I had some conversations with my superintendent and we discussed it, and he was very good about saying, gee, I think you have the right idea, but let's approach it in a different way. And how are we going to roll that out in the future? So by the end of my third year, I think that they were really on board. A lot of them were putting up, my learning target today is this, and I expect you to, expectations at the end of the lesson would be, today we're going to work on numbers, and I'll know when I can do this by showing evidence that I've done that. So we did a lot of that by the time I'd left there. And I think that, it was a long road, and you just can't expect things to happen without really vetting it with the right people and making sure that you are strategic in how you do things. So I think that was one of the successes I had. And it was also a failure, but you learn from your failures. And I have to say, I was very happy with, by the time I left there, that the teachers were planning a little differently. The lesson plans were much more robust. They were coherent. They were thoughtful. They weren't just, reading out of books anymore and saying, hey, let's read page 28 to 62. And this is going to be my curriculum for the day. Really was helpful to develop curriculum, develop instruction in the classroom, really. But again, it took several years. It wasn't, okay, we're all going to learn about UDL and we're going to go back to your classroom and we're going to use it. And that's really, my success ended up being, my failure ended up being a success. But I think I definitely approached it in a way that was probably not the best. So
Thanks a lot.
Cassie?
Mary Jane, what means of communication do you use currently in engaging with the community? What have you found to be most successful, and what have you tried that has not been successful?
Well, I'm finding out that if I do not use every form of communication that is available to me, somebody does not get it, and then I hear from it. So, excuse me, I keep falling off this chair because it's not really a good chair to be sitting in, honestly. But I use everything. We have a school website, and are fortunate that our website really connects to Facebook. It connects to Twitter, and it actually is on our website. We also have a live feed that goes right onto our website. So when I post something, so that's important. So we have that as well. And then I go into another area where I email everybody. We break it down by school, by parents, by school committee. So I include every communication I do goes out in an email, goes out on our webpage, goes out on every social media, Twitter. We don't have Instagram yet, but that's something we're working on. We have a system, we have a new IT person, so we're trying to get that out as well. So really those are the modes of, and phone calls. We do phone calls as well. I don't phone call everything, but sometimes I'll say, please take a look at the website. We're putting some information out on Sunday. I try to communicate every Tuesday and every Sunday, and they know that. So that's something I try to do on a regular basis. I am pretty regular about that. I expect my principals to communicate to families and once a week, once a month, especially with a newsletter, but really maybe a news and notes at the end of a week if they can do that, but they all should be providing a newsletter. I do a newsletter 4 times a year as well, and that goes out, and I try to celebrate each school. This year we're talking about Celebrate Maynard, so I do a lot of celebrations in there. So I put some communications out on that as well. And like I said, all my principals do newsletters. They all do emails. Right now that we're out, I'm making sure that our principals stay in touch with their staff members at least once a week. They're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, so they're liking that. The staff actually likes that. Today they're sharing their pet photos, so that's something nice that the staff is doing with each other. So really we're trying to try every piece of communication is out there, but ultimately there's always people who say they have not seen it. So, you know, I'm not sure what else we can do. You know, one of the things that our Board of Selectmen, who I have meetings with pretty regularly, really wants to talk about with us is, you know, how can we put some better PR, not that we have bad PR, but how do we get some PR out to celebrate our district? So one of the things they're looking at is, you know, could we create a flyer about the public schools or something, and things like that. I also do send out, I do pretty frequently send out emails to my, what is her name? The director of the senior center. So she oftentimes sends out that information out for as well to me. I don't include her in every correspondence, but the correspondence that I'd like the community to know about. For example, we had a scholarship night. I sent it to them. You know, sometimes we have homecoming. You know, are they interested in going to those things? So we do include the senior center in some of those conversations as well. So I try to do that as well. Again, we collaborate with the town, Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee and the town administrator. So we do communicate with them on a regular basis. As far as failures, I can honestly say that, say, for example, today I talked to my school committee members and, you know, I put something on the website and they said, well, how come we didn't see it? And, you know, you just have to say, you know, I did send it here, here, and here. And sometimes they just, you know, they want me to find another way. And I'm struggling with that, honestly. If people aren't looking at, you know, looking at all those avenues already, because there are people that don't have internet. So that's kind of something we struggle with too. The elementary school is better at it because they do send backpacks home to the kids and they send little newsletters home with parents for that as well. So sometimes it's hard to communicate for people who don't have that. We do have public access television. I don't put a lot on that because that is not run by us. It is a separate entity that's run by the students at the school. It's WAVM, and it's pretty much a schedule that's recorded. And that's something we're looking to do now, to do more of that, to see if we can put on public access television. So that's my answer.
Thanks. We've got probably about 5 minutes left and about 3 questions. Haley?
Hi, Teresa. Can you discuss your perspective on leadership of a district with declining enrollment?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. And I think that's one of the things we talked about in Maine, and my Board of Selectmen is very concerned with that. It is happening across the state. And it's really hard in Maine because it's really only 5 square miles. So there's only so much enrollment that one can have. So one of the things we're trying to do is really create a robust school. We want people to come be, you know, even in Gill-Montague, we want Gill-Montague to be the school that everybody wants to come to. So it's important that we try those innovative practices that we're looking to do. You know, have a robust curriculum, make sure that our teachers are providing the best instruction that's available. We want to make sure our, you know, increasing the dropout rate. Those are some things that we have to focus on. In order to, and when you focus on those things, people are going to see what a good program we have. What can we offer to people? But I also think you need to market yourselves better. You know, what can we do to bring people here? You know, what do we have to offer? You know, obviously we can't offer what Franklin Tech offers as far as, you know, the career technical resources, but perhaps we can talk to you know, Rick Martin over at Franklin Tech and say, hey, this year we'd like to open up a criminal justice program. I don't even know if they have one over there, but if they don't, maybe we can open a Chapter 74 program ourselves. You know, what can we do to support that each other and open up a program for that? The Department of Education is really looking to support students who are interested in CT education. So they're looking for new avenues for the regular traditional high schools to support that. And one of the things that you can do is find programs that would be able to be supportive. So for example, you know, web design, you know, cyber information technology, those are a lot of Chapter 74 programs that we could perhaps offer to students who are interested in to recruit, keep more of those types of students in. But one of the other things we want to do is really collaborate with the community colleges and the local colleges in the health career. So the health is really a big area that has a lot of need even now, but even before that, we need to really work with the colleges. I know when we were in Athol, we created a high quality career opportunities program. I became part of a grant on that. and one of the things we did is we brought the colleges into our school to identify students who are interested in their career pathways in the health field, not necessarily nursing, but other things to do with, as far as lab techs, phlebotomy, things like that. So really trying to create those programs and make it enticing for the students who want to come here. Let's see, what districts, what are we offering that, unfortunately, the population is not growing. So you don't want to say, let's, you might have to, increase the building and looking at your, home ownership and those types of things. But unless people want to move to the area, where the jobs are, that may be a problem. So unfortunately, we're all fighting for the same kids. If people want to come there, then you have to have a better school than somebody else to get the kids to come here. So I think my job as a leader is to really try to market the school to make it successful and make people want to come here by creating robust programs, increasing, programs for the students to be interested, making education programs individualized so that people can find what they're looking for in the Gill-Montague Regional School District. Make sure the preschool program is robust. What do we have to offer, that the next town over doesn't? Is our program, maybe increase some of the special ed programs we have that may cost a little bit in the beginning, but maybe we can bring more kids in at the Head Start program, because the earlier we can get kids in, then we can increase the enrollment as well. So really Western Mass is an area that we're seeing it decrease in enrollment just population-wise, is because that's not where the jobs are. So one of the things we should be doing is also working with the towns. What can we build to increase our revenue? I mean, I love the wagon wheel over there, but there's only so many places we can go to eat. So, do we, and the tourism is great in the spring, but what can we do during the school year to get people to come here, and how can we increase tourism and maybe get people to want to stay? So really, by having a good school district is really something that has to happen. And my job as a leader is to provide that resource using what we have out there.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions in about that many minutes. So
All
Cassie.
right. I'll be quick.
So our district has been and expects to continue to be going through change. Can you discuss your perspective on leadership during periods of change?
I think you have to be flexible. I can't tell you right now, if nothing, what we're going through now is actually things are changing by the minute, by the hour, by the second. I mean, honestly, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to work with people. You have to be collaborative. I think you have to listen to all constituents. There's no more changes that are happening right now that I think is gonna, if I can handle this, trust me, I can handle pretty much anything. It has been a whirlwind and is very dizzying. So I think you have to continue to stay the course, be true to your convictions, stay, have that moral compass and not deviate from that in the fact that you have a vision. Let's make sure that our vision is being taken care of. Really try to remain honest, open, flexible, but make sure that you have a set of course and make sure you're following that same course. You really, if you want to have a better district and going through some changes, I think it's important that flexibility, collaboration, really trying to keep the lines of communication open and bringing everybody in. Make sure that it's a group effort. It's not, even though I'm the leader, I can't do this by myself. We need everybody to do this. Takes a village, I guess. I get to use that. But I do think that it's important that everybody works together to really make sure that we have what we need to get where we need to go. But my job is to make sure that we stay on course and stay on track and have that ends to the mean and how are we going to get there, and really set action steps in place to make sure we get where we need to go. But if there's a glitch in the way, then you need to, sidestep, but get back on track. You have to make sure you can't give up, because nothing happens by giving up. So stay the course and be flexible.
Thank you. Tommy?
All right, last one. Mary Jane, can you briefly discuss the most difficult personnel problem you have ever dealt with and how you resolved it?
Oh my gosh. Just trying to pick one. I'm just trying to pick one. I think staff was a difficult one for me. And I say this lightly because people are people. And you have to treat everybody with
respect and dignity. We have two staffers from the same
department, and one was claiming something that was inappropriate about the other person. So doing investigations and really probing into people's personal life can be very invasive and really cause a lot of anxiety to people. And they want, they always feel that they're, you don't want people to feel that they're being victimized, but you also want to make sure you're supporting the other person's side. So I have to say, one of the things I did is really try to work with both parties to let them feel that I understood what they're going through, but I have to do my job. And it's critical that, whatever happens in the investigation, that, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be any less, valuable, whatever it may be. So this particular case was two people in the same department, and one person, accused somebody of something else. And, and it was found that this actually did happen. So we had to, take disciplinary actions on the other person, who was very well liked by the rest of the staff. But again, you have to move forward with the disciplinary actions, and then, support the other person who, in the end, says, I'm glad, but I still have to continue to work with that person, because you still have to follow the parameters of the law. So again, it took a couple of years to get that to work and, find to balance both sides of the story. So that was very difficult for me, because, I just felt that there was a lot of sides and a lot of people trying to get involved who you have to keep out. It's just that I'm here to investigate a specific situation, and I'm only going to investigate people, and you have to keep everything confidential. And, people don't want you to share their information. And I have to say that was very difficult for me. It was one of the very first things that I had to do by suspending a teacher. And it was not an easy thing to do, but, it was the right thing to do. But I would have to say that was probably very difficult. And, it was hard. Obviously, it still affects me because it was hard, but we did it.
Thank you. I think you have covered everything, and we appreciate your time and joining us this evening. And I'd say enjoy the rest of your evening, but the evening is getting pretty short.
It is.
Thank
Now,
you so
when are you looking for a timeline?
Well, we're going to deliberate tomorrow night,
That's what I thought. That's what
and
it's.
we hope to come to a conclusion and then let folks know soon thereafter. Unless we can't communicate even this way, we'll just have to do the best we can.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. It was a pleasure, and good luck in your search. And hopefully it's me, but good luck.
Thank you so much for your time and energy.
Have a nice night. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye now.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Ugh.
Thanks, Tina. We'll
Thank
get
you
another
all.
invitation tomorrow, right?
Yep.
To join
See you
the
guys
next
tomorrow.
one. All right. Thank you.
So
Tracy.
Jane, the links are all up on the website now
Oh, for tomorrow?
for the interviews.
Oh, okay.
The video
Oh,
link.
they're on, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so
All right.
much, Tina.
Thank you. Good
I'm
night.
sure we'll communicate tomorrow. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Thank you all. Be well.